Hello to all the listeners of the ID5 podcast. Welcome to How to Thrive in the Cookieless Present. This is a series of podcasts from ID5 where we're talking to a range of experts sharing their findings, case study results, real activity into the effectiveness of cookieless technologies, into targeting users that cannot be addressed with third-party cookies. The digital advertising industry is really in a state of flux with continual deprecation of the traditional signals that are used to address audiences with digital advertising campaigns. There's changing privacy regulations, there's the influence of big tech and other dynamics. But all of us listening, we know that advertisers and publishers are really missing out on reaching these valuable audiences in these cookieless browsers such as Safari and Firefox. Now, there is a lot of talk about this topic. We hope that with this podcast series, instead of just talk, we'll be really focused on action. What are the real results? What are the real learnings? What do the experts want to share on this topic? What's really live? What's happening now? What should we avoid? We really hope that this series will be useful in helping you better understand what works and what doesn't, and then can inform your future strategy as you navigate this ever-changing landscape. Today, I'm with Lukáš Šmol from CPEX, the Czech Publisher Exchange. Lukáš is a long-term publisher partner of ID5. Welcome, Lukáš.
Hi, Joanna. Nice to be here.
Great to have you here with us. Now, Lukáš, we've been working together for many years. Can you just give me a little overview, please, of the Czech Publisher Exchange?
Yeah, sure. Czech Publisher Exchange, or CPEX shortly, is a co-op or a publisher alliance from Czech Republic, and we basically cover most of the Czech markets. The founding fathers of the Czech Publisher Exchange are four biggest publishers in the Czech Republic: Mafra, Ekonomia, Czech News Center, and Vltava Media, and then we have about a dozen more publisher partners. And basically our core business really is programmatic advertising. So we do integrations for publishers, we integrate SSPs, we manage their header bidding, we manage their server-side integrations, yield management, stuff like that, and also data management, targeting, and so on. That's sort of like a day-to-day core business of what we do. And then there's this other part of our mission, which is always changing as the years go by. And it's basically what we're trying to do is to try to find some added value for publishers, try to find some area where we can either fix a problem or create an opportunity, something that it's not really a day-to-day business. At the early days, it was actually data collection and targeting and stuff like that. We were one of the first in Czech Republic and one of the first maybe in Europe to do that. Then later on, it was privacy. You know, there was a huge 2018 GDPR came in, and so that was one of our focuses. And now it's identity, and this is one of our main, let's say, hobby projects, or not right now, not a hobby project anymore. It started like that, but right now it's one of the main priorities of what we do, really.
Yeah, a main priority. So
yeah.
You're able to solve all this for the publishers, so you can take care of the monetization, the big issues that are coming up for them, the big issues that are on the radar, like GDPR at the time, and like identity and privacy now, so that you can enable the publishers to focus on the rest of their business.
Exactly, yes.
And you have been very successful as an alliance. I think a lot of alliances could look to you for some learnings.
Oh yeah, I think it's a really specific case. I almost don't believe it, but you know, I think very early on, the main thanks goes to our first CEO, Matěj Novák, who actually made the whole thing happen. And I think he did something that nobody believed would work and work for so long, that he actually put publishers together.
Yeah.
and it's been working we're like 10 years running or something like that. And I think it's really helping us right now, even in the, you know, the groundwork that has been done, the relationships between publishers that have been created. It helps us a lot. For example, it helped us with privacy, with dealing with privacy issues or the privacy topic, and it's helping us now with identity, because we're already together. You know, we don't have to, and it's easier to solve these topics together, and when you cooperate.
If you have the right experts in-house, yeah, and you can focus on the key issues and solve these headaches for the publishers. What's the reach that you have of the Czech market?
Well, in Czech market, there's one big player, Seznam, which is a publisher / technology company. They're the biggest ones, and the rest of the market is CPEX, basically.
Yeah, so you have all the expertise. And what about you personally? What are you responsible for at the Czech Publisher Exchange?
Officially, I'm a head of production, which is sort of a catch-all job. The production team, basically. Part of the production team does the day-to-day business, the integrations, the deals, the audiences, the troubleshooting, yield management, and stuff like that for publishers. And part of the team has these sort of development projects and that we do for publishers for privacy, identity, or whatever they need. So I'm basically in charge of that team in all of those projects.
Fantastic.
And identity mainly lately.
Fantastic. So you're a real expert in the identity topic. It's great to have you with us. So given that you're an expert on the topic of identity, let's dive in, Lukáš, so we can really find out what you've been up to and what you've learned in terms of results. So start with some scene setting. What steps have you taken for the company to future-proof your identity strategy?
Well, first, we started quite early, and at the beginning, we were just sort of educating ourselves, looking around, seeing what's out there, testing things, trying things. And that developed into sort of sub-project or 3 sub-areas that we're focusing on. One is alternative or next generation or first party or whatever, however you call it, IDs such as ID5. And another area was deterministic identity. So we are actually developing our own deterministic identifier in cooperation with Seznam, who is our main competitor, but it makes sense to work on this together. And the third one is, which we're starting with, we're sort of resurrecting contextual targeting as a additional thing. But the 2 main areas were the first party or probabilistic IDs. We've been testing a lot. We've deployed it in production actually on most of the inventory, and the deterministic. And one more thing that we've been doing, and this might be a little obvious, but I think it's really important because we've done a lot of it, and I think we're now reaping the fruits of that, is we've been talking to everyone live, right and left, right? So publishers, SSPs, DSPs, identity providers, agencies, DMPs, everyone. What are we doing? What are you doing? What can we do to help you? Or what can you do to help us? How can we cooperate? And stuff like that. I think this is like very, very important in this topic. Nobody can solve the whole thing in a vacuum of their own. You know, you need all the stakeholders to put together, and it's really important to align and to figure out how to do things together.
Yeah, I would agree. So how has the process been for you of this collaboration and your 3 pillars?
Yeah, it's been a slow start. As I said, we started early. We started at a time when it was, I think, 2018 or early 2019, something like that. So it was a sort of a niche topic. And as I said at the beginning, it was sort of like a hobby project. Like there's some problem. We started approaching this in the wrong way. as some faraway problem in the future that is going to be need to be fixed. And then slowly we sort of shifted into a different mindset. We realized that it's not just a problem someplace in the future. It's a problem and an opportunity that we have now, right? Because identity or addressability online is not great as is, and there's a lot to be fixed, and there's a big opportunity to monetize inventory that is not being monetized right now and stuff like that. So slow start, but we're learning a lot and gradually gain momentum, partially because of the Google announcements that keep being postponed, and partially because we've done some successful tests that gained some attention, and I think we managed to, sort of our change of perspective. We managed to communicate that, and I think we changed the perspective of some of the publishers and technological partners as well. That even especially after the first test, where we shown there's some added value that can be used now. People realized, okay, this is something that makes sense to be done now. So, and I think the timing was great. I mean, we had the first test around early spring last year, and that's when the topic was already getting hot, and we came with some first results. And after that, it just got much better and easier to talk to people, to convince them to test or integrate or whatever.
Great. Well, that sounds good. So let's talk about the tests and get into the detail there so that we can focus on the real results for this podcast. So clearly you're an expert. You've been really leaned in for some time. Tell me about the tests you did in the early part of last year of 2021.
So we've started, the very first one we did was with ID5 and then two other IDs, Criteo and PubCommon, that's what it was called then. Now it's shared ID. And basically we wanted to check, measure if there is any added value when by using these IDs. And so we've created two campaigns that were trying to buy inventory in cookieless browsers in Safari and Firefox. And one of those campaigns was using those IDs, and the other one wasn't using any. And we used it was a little bit more complicated than that. There was more campaigns. So one was with all the IDs, then 3 campaigns with each ID in them. But the main result was any ID showed a huge improvement in spend, in CTR, in everything. Just if you wanted to buy users of Safari and Firefox and maintain at least some basic parameters of the campaign, like frequency capping, then you couldn't have done it without those IDs, but with those IDs, it ran perfectly. So that was the first test. There was no targeting on audiences or anything yet, but it was a first very promising test, and that we've repeated several times later with, it wasn't really a test. It was basically, I mean, we sold it as a product basically, because that's the cool thing. It's like bring added value, real value right now. So that was one. The other one was very similar to that, but we wanted to compare the IDs in cookieless versus a campaign running on third-party cookies, right? So we in the first one, we proved that if you have nothing compared to IDs are much better, but how would IDs work against third-party cookies? I think that one was also quite encouraging. The results with the campaign with IDs weren't better than the one with cookies, but it was comparable, right? You could basically get very similar results. I think there was a slightly lower CTR on the ID campaign, but much bigger conversions, for example. So probably those people aren't targeted often enough. So yeah. Maybe they're more lean to click on things. So that was the other one. That's where we showed, okay, you can reach audience that you normally don't reach, and the results are comparable to third-party cookies, which is, I think, very encouraging considering that the ecosystem is built to work on third-party cookies, right? So like if you're sending identifiers, the DSP that we work with, Adform, was supporting them, but still, the whole technology is built on cookies. So I think if the results are comparable now, I think in the future it's going to be much better as the technology adapts and all the stakeholders adapt. So I think that those are really cool results.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the advertiser, they were able to have more reach and more reach, maybe less clicks, but more conversions. That's got to be appealing to an advertiser.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how did the publishers react?
Oh, the publishers were very happy. In general, I mean, it changed the whole situation for us, because at first, as I said, nobody really wanted to deal with identity. There were always some bigger problems to deal with. But then we had this, like, you remember the thing that we made you to implement those IDs. So here you have the numbers. It's actually making money. It's actually bringing value, and the buyers and advertisers are interested in it. So they were like, oh, so I think something clicked. So
great.
I think they were very satisfied with that.
So something clicked, and then you were able to secure more adoption.
Yes, I mean, basically, it was then easier to convince publishers to let's say implement those technologies on their inventory. It was easier to convince other partners, SSPs, DSPs, to either implement the support for those IDs or start talking about it. So we were just walking around waving the case studies, yeah. and it helped a lot.
Well, thank you for that, because being able to talk about these real results is really helpful for the demand side, their clients, and also for you on the supply side. And I think you've taken an excellent approach there to try and get the collaboration, to get everybody involved so that you can really move things forward for everyone. So that was last year. What about more recent activities?
So recently we've done a test with you, an A/B test with only ID5, and it was in pre-bid. We used your analytics module, pre-bid analytics module. That was, at that time, it was, I think, in beta or like
it's in very closed alpha. It's only available on special request, Lukáš.
Yeah, somebody in ID5 hooked me up, and we were very happy to test it. So basically, A/B test, a small fraction of the traffic was without IDs, and the rest was without any IDs, and the rest was with ID5. And then you at ID5 gathered the results and basically found out that if ID5 was present in the request, the CPM was higher. So again, I think encouraging results. It's measurable added value that you have right there.
Great. Well, we're really happy to collaborate with you on that. So what has been the reaction? Are you waving this case study around with advertisers and publishers?
Oh yeah, we're waving all the case studies. Absolutely. I mean, so like, it's a cool thing that now we have some sort of a rack of results that we can show because if you have one test is nice, but you need some repeated results. So we've done 2 tests that I've talked about. We've done this, and all together it just shows this is not just some hocus pocus. This really works, and this is something you can use. It's easy to integrate. It really doesn't cost you anything. And you can use it right now. So yeah.
Real results and available right now. So we're really talking about action, not theory. And through the process of this, you've obviously involved a lot of partners. So have you seen a change from the tests that you were doing in spring last year to these tests and the activity you're doing in 2022, progress in the industry in general?
Yeah, I think the change of the perception of the problem that I've talked about, I think I'm starting to see it around, that it's not a future problem, but a now problem, or not problem. I see it as an opportunity, actually. So I think this is changing, and what is changing really is that we're getting some concrete technical support with the stakeholders, right? This is why we were able to do the very first test, because to be quite honest, early in 2018 or 2019, when we were trying first IDs, you were just sort of shooting them in the dark, hoping that someone will pick them up, right? But right now, the change is that we know which SSPs supported. We know, like when we were doing the first test, we knew the Magnite SSP will pass the ID as we need it, and the Adform DSP would actually use the ID if they see it, and they will use it for targeting and for frequency capping and stuff like that. So the change is that there's like tangible support with SSPs, DSPs, DMPs, and all these stakeholders that you need to move from playing around and testing to actually doing something in production and in real life. So I think this is the main change, really, and also the change of the perspective. Before we started recording, we talked about Google postponing the whole thing again, and I really think it's not going to really slow down anything now, because right now I think everybody is already doing this, and it just gained some momentum, and I think it's not going to stop or slow down now.
Yeah, I think I love the way you describe it as an opportunity. So I think, Lukáš, you and your team, with your expertise and your understanding of the market and your ability to corral all the different players. So you named Magnite there. This is one of the SSPs that passes ID5, and also Adform, one of the DSPs that can work with ID5 on the buy side on behalf of their advertiser and agency clients. So you've been able to bring them all together to really benefit from this opportunity. So why do you think that you've been so successful and then other countries are not moving as fast?
That's a tough one. I'm not sure. I think part of the success on our end was before we did the first test, there was like almost 2 years of discussions, right? And that's why I said I think it's really important. So we had a relationship already in place. We were already talking about these things.
Yeah.
With Adform, with Magnite, with Group M, the agency that we did the first test with. So I think what really helped us was the relationships, and that we started a conversation very early. And yeah, I'm not sure what the problem is elsewhere. I think what I see are two things. Sometimes I see some sort of a decision paralysis or something like that. Like the problem is complicated. There's a lot of things you can do. You don't know where to start, so you just don't start at all. I see it quite often, I would say. And for that, my advice would be just start with something. If you don't know where to start, just do one thing. Talk to your top 3 partners, or just implement an ID, or do something and move on from there. And another thing that I hear not as often, but I think it could be a valid strategy, some sort of strategy for some people, is that some publishers, technology companies, they tell me, we're just going to wait it out, right? Somebody will come up with a solution, and then let everybody else test it, and then we'll use whatever works, which I think could make sense in some cases, but I think there's a risk of losing part of your business by being the last, and there's definitely a loss opportunity there. But I think for some, if I'm a small publisher with one domain and almost non-existing development team, I would probably wait it out as well. But
yeah. So the thing is, you say waiting for others to do the tests, and then they'll be last to move. But you have been talking about this topic since 2018. You've been working with us actually since 2019. You have released results in 2021 and in 2022. So I feel like that side of the work is already done. We already have a lot of people that have done all the initial learnings, corralling the market, doing the tests. Now the results are out there. So surely, how can we move this forward faster?
Well, I think the way we are going to do it is here in Czech Republic, that we're just going to take initiative, and we're going to sort of try to push others to join us. That's our strategy. That's how we've been doing things since the beginning. So like, if everybody's waiting it out, we take initiative and start first.
And encourage others to get on board. So yes, what is the plans? What's the plans for the rest of this year, with the learnings that you have?
Well, we might do some more tests. There is nothing specific on the short-term horizon because we're in the middle of the summer. But I think in autumn we'll figure something out. We might try. We're still looking into alternative identifiers, what's out there, and if there's anything reasonable to try and test. So if something comes up, we'll definitely do that. I don't think the job is done yet, right? I think the job is never going to be done. That's the programmatic thing. Like, you always need to look for new things and how to improve things, and new use cases come up and stuff like that. So we'll be doing that. And a big priority for us is the Check-it ID, the deterministic ID that we're developing with Seznam. That is the aim of it is to create a standard for determining the identity for Czech market. So this is going to be a huge priority for this year and the next one for us. And as I mentioned at the beginning, contextual, I think that's something that could, one more piece into the puzzle. So I think these are going to be three main areas for us.
So you really are making the whole country addressable in a privacy-focused way. Let's just touch on privacy, because that's also been something that's very important for you. How are you approaching that?
Well, you mean privacy or? Privacy. We take it very seriously, of course. I mean, so it's there's some synergy there because we also provide a CMP.
Yes.
And manage CMP for the whole CPEX. So again, for a huge part of Czech market. So we integrate it. We know how it works. We consult with lawyers almost weekly on everything that is going on. So the whole project of identity, if it's ID5 or other identifiers or our own Check-it ID, everything is tied to privacy from the beginning, right? So everything is tied to consent. We use the TCF, IBTSCF framework. And I think that, again, it helps that the work that we have done with privacy 2 years ago, it helps. We were already just like building up on that, right? On the know-how and all that, also relationships. The publishers are already using that technology, so they know that if we add something to it, it's going to work together. So
yeah, I think there's actually, collectively as an industry and the key players of the industry, we've actually built up quite a good understanding of the need for privacy, the different roles, the importance of protecting your customers' data. So it's just native for us in Europe now, I think.
Yeah, I think I think the understanding within the industry is very good, and the difference between, like, again, when GDPR came out, the Czech market was a little specific. The local data protection office was quite liberal at the beginning, so nobody really was going to implement any CMPs or anything like that. And CPEX was the one that was trying to persuade publishers, do this now because this is not going to go away, and you're going to need this. And they grudgingly did it, and we persuaded everyone. And I think I'm glad we did that. I'm glad we did that. The understanding of that privacy is important. It's an integral part of the whole business, and it's not going anywhere. I think that has sinked in, and I'm happy it's there. The only thing I think that remains within the industry, the understanding is great, but sometimes I think we forget the users a little. I still get emails because we manage CMP, so we still get emails from users that are confused or don't understand why should they give any consents or something like that. And I think we should try to educate. We've educated ourselves, and now we should try harder to educate users. I think publishers and tech companies should work on that much harder. We shouldn't just, place a CMP on the page and think that's job done.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do think that we've all learned a lot, especially in Europe and the more forward-leaning markets, forward-thinking markets. And yes, that concept of the value exchange, the why the user gets all this content and in return for their data, their time, their exposure to advertising, there's still some way to go there, I agree. But we need to get it right. It's the right thing to do, as you said. You've clearly had the foresight to know that the regulations were changing, but we need to make this work for consumers. They need to understand and have the advertising that's relevant for them. Like you said, you had a higher click-through rate. So maybe less exposures, but a higher click-through rate. So if our advertising makes sense to the consumer and they feel like they've got some control and power, I feel like that's the direction that the advertising industry is moving in as a whole, and it's a way to support the long-term future of the business. Yeah, I agree, and I think that people, if you take the time and explain it to them, a lot of people accept that exchange value, right? I mean, our CEO David Voracek, he for some reason he put his phone contact into our DPO page, so people actually call him when they're angry about the CMP and what is this, why it's in my computer. And every time somebody calls angry and he just explains to them what's going on and what's the exchanged value, and every phone call ends up, okay, I get it, okay, it's fine, they just don't know because nobody tried to explain them. So I think we need to collectively improve that so that the CEO has less angry calls. There must be a way to scale that.
Exactly. I mean, he's working the whole Czech Republic person by person right now.
Yes. We need to scale that out to the rest of the world. So look, Lukáš, it's really been really interesting to spend the time with you, talking through your journey, your approach, your pioneering approach to finding out as much as you could, the tests that you've run, the results you've seen, the learnings that you gathered. What would be your advice if there's people listening to the podcast today and they wonder where to start? Maybe they have decision paralysis. I've certainly seen that in some places. There's too many options. They don't know where to start. Maybe they're worried about, will the deadline change? What would be, at the same time, there's this opportunity that you've explained that there's something they could be missing out on, regardless of whether they're on the buy side or supply side, or an ad tech player across both. What would be your advice to start on the migration journey?
I would say don't start small. Don't really expect to come up with the whole identity strategy in one meeting and plan 3 years ahead and just execute. I would say start small, read up on the topic, see a webinar. And for me, I think most important, talk to your partners. Choose 3 or 5 of your top buyers or your top sellers or whatever that is, and talk to them. What are you doing? Explain what you are doing, and ask them what they are doing. How can you help each other? What would they want you to do, and stuff like that. And after that, take one action, do something, pick one thing and do it. And again, it can be something small. You can, if you can integrate an ID into your pre-bid, that's literally like an hour of work, right? It costs nothing. And then you can check with that partner if they are receiving it and if it works, and move on from there. I think if you like, the path will be slightly different for everyone. There's, markets are different. Technology companies, publishers, they have different circumstances. So I think go step by step, and the path will really reveal itself as you go on.
That's brilliant advice. So in preparing for your identity strategy, start with some tactics, test, learn, iterate, and the path will reveal itself. That's just brilliant advice.
Yeah. And I don't get discouraged when something doesn't work, right? I mean, that's also a know-how that you just gained. If you try this and it's not working for you, it's good to know, so you can move on. That's not a failure. It's something that you figured out. So
I think that's a super important thing to remember. And also, you said you talked to all your partners to collaborate. Just to say, we're really here to collaborate with you and your other partners in the market and all markets to move this topic forward. Lukáš, it has been really a pleasure to spend some time with you today, looking at all the learnings you've made with your identity strategy, looking at your actual real results, your approach, all the intelligence you've amassed on this topic, and your plans for the future. So I just want to thank you so much for spending time with us today. And I really hope that that's useful for all the listeners.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.